Home invasion stories are always terrifying, because they can happen to anyone. Tonight, I'm going to share 4 disturbing true home invasion horror stories that still haunt the people who lived through them. Turn off the lights, and listen carefully. I grew up in a quiet little town where nothing ever happened. My parents worked late, so I was used to being alone after school. I was 14 when this happened, and for years I tried to convince myself that I imagined it, but I know I didn't. It was a cold winter evening. Snow outside, silence everywhere. I was alone in the house because my parents were running late from work. I made myself noodles, watched TV, and eventually went to my room upstairs. Around 8:40 p.m., I heard the sound of footsteps on the back porch. At first, I ignored it. Houses make noises, right? But then I heard it again, slow, heavy steps, crunching the snow. I muted the TV. Everything went silent. Then, knock, knock, knock. At the back door. Not the front one. Not the one strangers normally use. The back door, the one behind the house, hidden from the street. I froze. Another knock, but this time softer, slower, almost playful. I called out, "Who is it?" No answer. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Then I heard something that made my stomach twist. A man's voice whispered from behind the door, but the words were impossible to understand. It sounded like he was talking to someone else. I tiptoed to the kitchen, staying low, and peeked around the corner at the back door. That's when I saw the shadow. Someone tall, standing perfectly still, facing the door. I reached for the landline phone. No cell phones back then. As I picked it up, the whispering stopped. Then the doorknob started to turn. Slowly, gently, purposefully. I backed away and dialed my mom, whispering what was happening. She told me to lock myself in her bedroom upstairs and stay on the line. I ran up the stairs as quietly as I could. Halfway up, I heard the door rattle loudly this time. He was trying to force it. Then, footsteps. Inside the porch. Moving toward the side of the house, toward the living room window. I crawled to my parents' room, locked the door, and hid behind the bed. Minutes later, I heard the unmistakable sound of someone tapping on the living room window glass. Not knocking. Not banging. Just tapping. Light, rhythmic, patient. When my parents finally arrived, the tapping stopped, and the man vanished into the dark backyard. Police found footprints all around the house. They even found prints on the porch roof, meaning he tried reaching the upstairs window too. He was never caught. For months, every winter night, I swore I heard that same slow tapping on the glass, even when I knew no one was there. This happened when I was 19 and living with 3 college roommates in a cheap rental house. The place was old, creaky, and the basement was especially creepy, unfinished, concrete floors, and a single light bulb that flickered. We almost never went down there. One night, around 2 a.m., I came home from work and noticed our front door slightly open. Not wide, just an inch. I figured someone forgot to close it properly. Inside, the house was dark and silent. All my roommates were asleep. As I locked the door, I heard something faint coming from the basement. A voice. A deep, low male voice, whispering. At first, I thought it was one of my roommates messing around. But the voice didn't sound like anyone I knew. It sounded wrong. Too deep. Too slow. Too calm. I stood at the top of the stairs, listening. Just wait, not yet, quiet. My heart dropped. Someone was down there. I backed away and grabbed a kitchen knife. My hands were shaking so hard the blade tapped against the counter. I quietly woke my roommate, Ben, and whispered what I heard. He listened, pale-faced, as the voice continued. "I know you're there," those words, spoken in that slow, steady whisper. I'll never forget it. We ran outside and called the police. When they arrived, they entered the basement with flashlights drawn. A few minutes later, an officer walked back up, looking confused and disturbed. "No one's down there," he said. "But someone was here." In the far corner of the basement, they found footprints, a torn blanket, empty food cans, and a small radio. A man had been secretly living in our basement for God knows how long. He must have slipped out while I was waking my roommate. The police never found him. But every night after that, I kept imagining that deep whisper right behind me, only one step out of sight. This happened to a coworker of mine, but she swears every word is true. She had just moved into a small house near the woods. Nothing around her except trees and one neighbor far down the road. The first night went fine, but on the second night, around 3 a.m., she woke up to a soft tapping on her bedroom window. She thought it was a tree branch, but when she looked, there was a young girl, maybe 12 years old, standing outside. Dirty clothes. Barefoot. Expression completely blank. My coworker froze. Before she could react, the girl whispered through the glass, "Let me in." Not crying. Not scared. Just emotionless. My coworker said, "Where are your parents?" The girl didn't answer. She just tilted her head and repeated, "Let me in." She grabbed her phone to call the police. When she looked back at the window, the girl was gone. As the officers searched the yard, they found fresh footprints in the dirt, but they didn't lead away. They circled the entire house, several times. The girl had been walking around her house long before she woke up. A few days later, her neighbor told her something that still makes my skin crawl. Years ago, a family lived here. Their daughter went missing. They never found her. Nothing else ever happened, but my coworker moved out a month later. Sometimes she says she still dreams about the girl's whisper, "Let me in." My final story is something I personally experienced when I was 22. I lived in a small apartment on the 6th floor. One night, I kept hearing strange noises coming from the vent above my bed. Scratching, shuffling, breathing. I assumed it was an animal. But the sounds were too slow, too controlled, too human. I climbed on a chair and put my ear against the vent. I heard someone whisper, "Move." I fell backward off the chair. I called maintenance the next morning, trying to sound calm. The guy took off the vent cover and shined a flashlight inside. He froze. He didn't move for a full 10 seconds. Then he looked at me and whispered, "Call the police." Inside the ventilation system, they found signs that someone had been crawling through the ducts, dust disturbed, fingerprints, small pieces of fabric from clothing. The police eventually discovered that a mentally unstable man on the 7th floor had been sneaking into the vents at night. He admitted he liked crawling through them because he enjoyed watching people sleep from above. I moved out the next day. To this day, whenever I hear any sound in a vent, I feel my chest tighten. Because now I know, sometimes it's not an animal. Sometimes, it's someone watching. Those were 4 disturbing true home invasion horror stories. Which story scared you the most? Comment below, and subscribe for more true horror stories.